Hello everyone, and welcome to another AITS Tech Talk webinar. My name is Carla Girdi, and I will be your host for today. In today's webinar, we will go through the geospatial module in the GISize with my colleague Janine Kuta, who will take us through its features, architecture, and after we'll dive into the technical demo. Before we start, let me just remind you to type any questions you have during the session in the question area, and we will answer them at the end of the session. Now let's get started. Hi, Janine.
Hi, Carla. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you guys for joining. In this webinar, we will take a quick look on the features and architecture of this geospatial module from GISize. Using the GISize toolbox, we're going to create an online and offline map providers, create and configure markers, layers, tooltips, and shapes. Finally, we're going to integrate the geospatial module within InTouch for System Platform and OMI. Let's take a quick overview. GISize for Wonderware provides a software architecture designed to enhance the visualization and navigation of spatial or geographical data in a GIS, which stands for Geographic Information System. It provides an interactive add-on for Wonderware and InTouch standalone as well, using set of wizards and virtual controls to represent elements in a huge installation as spatial data. Some of the geospatial module features are it allows faster project development. It increases or it makes more efficient engineering with simplified and easy to use automated tasks. It extends the AVEVA system platform compatibility. It is also here possible to use the standard map providers such as Google, Bing, or even create your own maps or image providers based on vector files, if you have any. The GISize development tools are embedded in the Orchestra IDE within the GISize toolbox. We're going to take a quick look later on when we have a demo on specifically on the GISize toolbox. But let's talk a little bit now about the architecture. The GISize basically creates its own repository, which is like a complete GISize system consisting of a single logical name defined by the GISize database. So the database itself, it contains all the collection of the elements or the components of the GISize, which are map providers, layers, markers, shapes, and other configuration components. And as you can see in the picture, the Galaxy repository for the system platform is linked to the Galaxy repository of the GISize. Let's take a look on the different types of map providers that we have. So let's begin defining a map provider. A map provider is a geospatial database consisting of geospatial map images. And it can be particularly in the geospatial module of GISize, it can be classified into 3 different types. We have the online, offline, and vectorial types of map providers. So we're going to start defining the online map provider here. The online map provider, as it sounds like, it requires access to the internet to provide the mapping. For example, I think you're all familiar with Google Maps. You need an internet connection to be able to connect and get all those geospatial maps and data from the map server. Unlike the offline map provider, which behaves like a cached, cached online map provider. The purpose of those is to provide a map navigation in environments where there is no internet access. So here what we do is that basically we store the data in our local machine in order to access them later on when we need them. The final one is the vectorial type of map provider, which is based on SVG vector images files. And the particular thing here is that they can be optionally georeferenced, allowing the use of latitude and longitude coordinates here. Now here we're going to talk about the different components of the basic components of the geospatial module, which are layers, markers, and shapes. And I did not highlight here on tooltips because you're going to see later on that tooltips is part or integrated inside the marker object itself. So let's start with layers. Layer basically, you're going to see later on that it's not really visible to you guys. It's more like a conceptually interpreted as a transparent level where markers and shapes are attached. So it is a holder for the markers and shapes. So what's a marker? A marker is like a pointer to a specific coordinate on the map that is represented by an image. And this image can be created using paintbrush or any other painting tool that you can use to generate that image. Shapes. It's a collection of specific coordinates on the map, and they are represented as a polyline if they are opened, or a polygon if they are closed. So you can choose between two options. Either it's a polyline or a polygon. Later on in the demo, you will see that you have, for example, a circular type of shape that you can configure. The final part here, which is the most interesting part, is that the geospatial module can be integrated with the supervisory clients of the system platform, which are the InTouch for System platform and the OMI. But I want to point something here is that it also can be integrated or configured along with the InTouch standalone as well. So in order to integrate the geospatial data with the InTouch for System platform, you can import the dedicated objects that contains all the .NET controls, embed them in a symbol, because the .NET client control can be embedded in a symbol. You need to do some configuration on that .NET line control, and using this symbol editor, and then you are ready to go. You can just right away integrate that symbol in a window, and then you can jump to runtime right away. On the other hand, since the .NET client controls, they're not, they cannot be integrated within the OMI application, you need designated apps to be imported and used in layouts and panes. For example, here we're going to learn about the wrapper, the GISize wrapper app specifically dedicated for OMI. Let's hop in to the demo here. So we're going to talk about 4 different things here. Going to create an online map provider using the ArcGIS online map provider. Going to create an offline map provider, insert layers, markers, configure tooltips and shapes. Finally, we're going to integrate within the system platform and InTouch for System platform and the operation management interface. All right, let's hop into the virtual machine here. All right, so sorry about that. Let me just open the full screen here. All right, now I'm ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to point out here is that when you install the geospatial module, you will see that a toolbox here will be created for you. All right. So this toolbox, it contains all the configuration options that you have for your geospatial module here. For example, if you go, first of all, you should have a Galaxy repository. I'll take you that in a minute, but let me give you a quick look on the options that you have. For example, you have administration options. You can save your Galaxy repository. You can import it, export it, delete it, all right, duplicate it, rename it, all those, even configure security, for example. So you have all those options ready for you in the administration operations here. Second, you have the map providers, create map providers, layers. You can even configure navigation. Here, I don't know if you're familiar, you guys, with the idea of template and instances. Here you can create templates for markers, instances for markers, for shapes as well. You can configure containers, and you can even also integrate a different language for your runtime view, for example. And also security can be configured as well. Here, the runtime preview here, it helps the engineer for testing procedures here before running into the actual field runtime there. All right, so before starting and with the demo, I want to highlight on something here is that in this demo particularly, the data of 2 cities are going to be represented on the map. So I have 2 cities, I want to represent them on the map. And these 2 cities, actually, they are represented in the IDE with 2 user-defined objects. All right, and those 2 user-defined objects, they have some attributes. So let me open one of those. I have configured 2 objects, one for Abu Dhabi and one for Dubai. They have several attributes in there. They have the status, the energy in kilowatt hours, the CO2 emission, alarm severity, and the alarm count. So how to show these data inside on the map provider? All right, so let's first start. The first thing to start with is creating your map provider, or maybe using an already configured map provider. So here, when you go to map providers, go to the GISize toolbox, go to map providers, open the tile map providers. So for today, I'm going to use the tile map providers. If you open that, by default, you will see that there are already existing map providers for the geospatial module. All right, so it's either there or you can use the already configured map providers, or you can create your own. Here in the demo, I'm going to create 2. I'm going to create an online map provider using the ArcGIS. I'm going to show you that in a minute. And another one, which is an offline map provider. Let me start with the online map provider. So here I have already created an example for the ArcGIS map provider. If I choose it from the list and click on edit, you will see that the most important thing for the online map provider is to specify a URL. So I have already prepared the URL coming from the sample server of the ArcGIS online map service. So here it's already there. First of all, you have to enable that map provider. You can specify the order of your objects in runtime. For example, here I've specified it to be 15. You can change the opacity, for example, to 56%. Here I want it to be. It's a free map provider. It's an online map provider, and you have the ability also to configure the type of the excuse me, the coordinate system that you have, for example, geodetic or the Qatar National Grid. For this one, I'm going to use the geodetic system there. Here inside the custom process, you can specify some properties about this particular map provider. For example, this particular map provider, it has reverse coordinates. So what I did here inside the custom process, I put reverse coordinates in order to indicate that the GISize is supplied by that online map provider using switched or reversed types of coordinates. All right. What else to do here? Oh, I have a refresh period, which is a 0. So how since I'm online, I want to refresh this map provider every couple of seconds, for example, or here it's 0 by default. You can enable layers for this map provider as well. All right. So this is the basic properties for the online map providers. Let me jump now before going to the runtime preview and show you that. Let me go to the offline map provider. So I'll select Dubai offline, which I've already created. I'll click on edit. You will see that the most important part here is on the other hand, because for online you specify the URL. Here you should specify a cache path, which is where you want to save the data of your map provider. And then you should select it to be an offline map provider. When you select an offline, it will take you automatically to specify the source. So here we have the source. It can be either an online map provider as acting as a source or an offline map provider acting as a source. So here I have chosen an online with a map a Google map. So here you have a list that you can choose from, or existing map providers, and then you can select the zoom levels. Well, basically in the geospatial module, you have 24 different levels of zoom levels. The more you increase the zoom levels, the more data you want to show. And the more time, of course, you need time to generate the cache and save it to your local machine. The second thing you should do is select the area. So here you should select the area on where you want to highlight or see this particular focused area of the map provider here. Then the most important part, which is the final one, is generate. Click on generate cache and accept. This usually requires some time because you are saving it in your machine. So I'm going to jump right away to runtime to show you the results of those. All right. So in order to see runtime, I go to the runtime preview here, double click on that. Then it will take me to the runtime preview in seconds here. So you see that the runtime preview takes me to several things here. You can see the user defined. If I'm using the default user as logged in user to the IDE here. You can see, for example, the button reload data in order to, if you did some extra configuration, you want to reload the view, you can use that. You can see the layers, the containers, the navigation model, and you can do some configuration as well. And the coordinates to where you're highlighting. So now let us see here the map provider. It's by default the OpenStreetMap. Let me go to Dubai offline. You will see that it takes me right away to the zoomed area to where I want to zoom in. Excuse me. Now to the ArcGIS online example. Usually this requires some seconds to load because it's an online map provider. Just give it a few seconds to load. Few seconds. I'll get back to it later, but let's just give it some time. Trying to zoom in and zoom out to see if it's there. All right, here we go. So basically you can see here some parts of that online map provider, which is already loading. So yeah, now it's fine. So now you can see that it has already loaded. All right. So that's it for the map providers part here. Let's jump into the layers. So the first thing after specifying where you want to put all the data, specifying the map provider, let's create the layer. So the third part here is the layer. So in order to configure a layer, you need to, let me just take you to a layer I have already configured. Let me click on edit. You'll see that you need a name. The beautiful thing here is that a layer can be attached to an orchestra area. And the third thing you can do is specify the map provider you want that layer to belong to. For example, here I have specified the map OpenStreetMap. In this demo, I'm going to use basically the OpenStreetMap to demonstrate everything. The beautiful thing here is that I want to highlight on something here is that by default, the markers are drawn with the same size as the image associated to them, because I've already mentioned that the marker itself is an image. Excuse me. Since the markers are drawn with the same size by default, sometimes it's unpractical when you zoom in and zoom out. So we can configure, you have the option here to configure or enable a dynamic marker size by associating to each zoom level a relative size in percentage of the original size of the image used for the marker. So as a result, so when we zoom in or zoom out, the image, of course, will change its size accordingly based on the zoom level. Same applies to shapes. All right, so here the marker size and the shape size can be dynamic, using dynamic sizing there. You can specify a hierarchy for your layers, for example, a parent layer deriving several layers, and etc. All right, and one thing to note is the min zoom and the max zoom, which is the most important part here, is that you should note that if the zoom layer is lower or higher than the minimum or the maximum zoom, then the layer will not be visible. So this is important to note. So that's it for configuring the layer. Very easy and simple. So what I did here, just put the name, put the alias. Alias is you don't have to put it if you want to. Specify the map provider, and you're ready to go. One thing to note is that you have to enable the layer for the map provider as well. So if you go back to the on-street map provider, since I'm using it, if you click on edit, the corresponding layer should be selected. This is a very important note. All right. So now that's it for the layer. You're going to tell me, okay, can I see it in runtime now? Well, basically, since the layer is transparent for me, I need to add now some elements to the layer. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to add markers to that layer. So the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to configure markers. So in order to configure marker, you can either create directly a marker instance, connect it to an instance from the model or from the IDE, or you can create a template, which is better for you. You can generalize your work by creating a template. So I have already created a marker for the cities, for example, the Dubai and Abu Dhabi cities. And in order to configure the marker, you have several properties. The marker can have, which is an image. Let me remind you, it's an image. It can have an offset. It can have a rotation. It can have a text. You're going to see that we're going to embed text here. I have configured text to be as my alarm count. As you remember, I have an attribute inside the city Dubai object. It has an alarm count. So this is what you're going to see later. Excuse me. Then you can specify the image. So if you double click on that, it will take you right away. Just double click on that. Okay, so it will take you right away, so you can choose which image you want. I have chosen this image here. You can specify the text color. Oh, the image here disappeared. Let me go back and select it. So here, let me go and select the image I want from here. All right, now the image appeared again. So you can change the text color. Here I want a black. You can change the font text size. All right. And the most important thing is that this template, marker template, can be attached to an orchestra template. So here you can specify the name of the orchestra template that you want, for example. This is a very nice option, but I'm not going to do that now. Second thing is create the custom properties of the marker that we can link to the custom properties of objects. So for example, here, the alarm count here is referenced to the alarm count, which is an attribute inside the orchestra instances. So here I'm using like a more than a relative reference here. So it's orchestra instance dot the alarm count, or you can even select a reference by using the Galaxy browser. Let me go to the instances. So for example, City Dubai, you can select whatever here attribute you want to use. All right, then you can create your animations. All right, so the animations, basically what I did here is that I did three things. I want the image of the marker to change whenever this status changes. So whenever the status is equal to 1, I want it to have image 1. Whenever the status is equal to 2, I want it to have image 2. I'll show you that in a minute. And the alarm count also, I want to show it as text. So if you click on edit, you will see that if I have a condition, if the status is equal to 1, I want the property type of image to change accordingly to a red color. All right. So here you can configure animations, okay? And you can finally configure a tooltip. So here, if you go to edit tooltip, you can, whenever you hover over this image, it will take you a tooltip. Here I did a tooltip to show you the energy and the CO2 consumption or emission, sorry. So you can specify an image for the tooltip, an image color, and even you can have animations for this tooltip. So here basically I'm assigning two properties, the attribute 1 and the attribute 2, to show me accordingly the energy and the CO2 levels. Here I'm not going to save anything. So I'm going to jump right away to the runtime preview and go back and choose the OpenStreetMap and go to the layers, enable the city layer, and you will see that here the image will appear for the Dubai city. I almost forgot something. Before doing that or jumping to runtime, you have to create an instance because this is a template. So I want to create an instance for Dubai city in particular. So what I did is that if you go to instances markers, then I have created already an instance for Dubai. And if I edit it, you can see that I should select a layer. So the two most important thing is select a layer. So this instance is derived from the template I've already created. I should select a layer to which it belongs to, select the coordinates here, which is pointing to Dubai city. So, and the most important part to do, which is definitely the most important part to do, is link this one to the city underscore Dubai, which is the user defined object, which is acting as an instance. So this is very important to do. All right, so I'm not going to save anything here, just jump directly right away in this view here. So if I enable that, you will see that the tooltip is showing and the marker is already there. You can do the same. You can create an instance for Abu Dhabi city as well if you want to. Excuse me. So now I'm going to the object viewer to show you how these change accordingly. So if I go to the object viewer in here and specify, for example, the status, I want it to be 2. So now what will happen is that the image will change to yellow because you know I have already created an animation for that. If I change the alarm count there, it will also change inside the text here in the tooltip, in the image here. And as well, the tooltip, it will give me the corresponding values. For example, the energy here. Oops, it's stuck. I'm sorry. Oh, here we go. Oh, this is the alarm count. Let me go back to the energy, double click on that. And then, for example, put 3000, click apply, go back again to see the tooltip. Let me point thing about the tooltip. You're going to wonder, okay, the tooltip is not appearing quickly because, you know, by default, the tooltip will appear 5 seconds with delay of 5 seconds, but you can configure that in as a parameters inside when you go to the InTouch for System platform and the OMI. It's a parameter that you can configure. So basically now I'm done with configuring the layers, the marker template, the marker instance. Now it's time to configure the shape. So as I did for the markers, I have created a template and an instance. Now I want to create a template for the shape. So the shape here, I have already created a template for the shape. If you click on edit, I have filled it with a color, with a blue color. It's solid. It is a polygon, so it's either it can be a polyline, a circle, or a polygon. I have made it I don't want borders. The opacity by default it's 50. I have already also made some animations. So what will happen here is that when the energy exceeds a certain limit, you will see that the shape will be of a different color. So what I did here is that I created an animation for the energy attribute there. So if you click on edit, you will see that if the energy exceeds 5 thou, you're going to see that the color is red of that shape. So then after creating the template, you should create an instance for the shape. So here you go. I have created one for Dubai. Then in order to finish this up, you should specify the layer. So I have already created a layer called energy. Then select the coordinates. Here, when you select the coordinates, it will take you and you can draw the polygon. As you can see, I have 4 points making up this polygon that I have just drawn later, before, sorry. So here, let me show you what really happens. So in runtime, so now the energy basically, it's 3000. So let me put it to be, let me see it, what's going on first. So what I'm gonna do is that enable the layer energy and then zoom in a little bit to see that here. All right, so you see that this shape appears as a blue color, but in order to change it to red, the energy should exceed 5 thou. So I'm going to put that 6,000, and now accordingly, the shape will change its color. All right. So now, guys, we are done with shapes, markers, tooltips, all of that. Now let us integrate the geospatial module with both the InTouch for System platform and the OMI. So in order to do that, we should import the object dedicated for that. So I have already created, before jumping to that, if you go to the graphic toolbox, you will see that I have already here GISize content. I have already uploaded or imported some apps. Those apps, they're for the InTouch OMI apps or the .NET client controls, which are used for with the InTouch for System platform. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to create a symbol. So here I have created a symbol, and inside this symbol I have configured or I have placed one .NET client control for the layer and one .NET. So this one is for the layer, the other one is for the control panel. We should configure that as well. So in order to configure the main GISize .NET client control, it's important to specify 3 things. You should specify the name of the repository, which is the GISize repository, which is the name of the repository already created, I'm working on. And you should have a SQL trusted connection is equal to true. Note that here it's very secure here. You can have security inside your SQL by specifying the password, and you can have security by SQL, in other words. And the design time should be set to true. These are the 3 most important parameters that you should be careful on while you're working with the InTouch for System platform. The second thing is that you should specify the GISize control for your layers. So here, And for the GISize control name, it should be GISize control. Now you're ready to embed this symbol inside a window and then see it. So here by default, I have created an InTouch application here, and it has an already configured window that has already also has this symbol integrated into. So we're going to right away click runtime to show you how this appears for the InTouch for System platform. Just in a minute for the Windows, the InTouch HMI window to open. You see that here I have a GISize window. This GISize window holds the symbol I have already created. Now, if you click, all right, let me open that in quickly. And then let me go to runtime. All right, here, runtime. Now, whenever runtime opens, you will see that you will have the same image that you already have inside the runtime preview already that you've seen already. Let's have a quick look on that quickly. So now it's loading. All right, so here you have your layers and your map provider. So if you click on cities and energy, you will see that it's highlighting on Dubai city here. So now you will see that everything is working fine in the InTouch for System platform. Now let's hop in to the InTouch OMI. And as I said earlier, you need designated apps to do that. So what I did here is that I have already configured an app that contains all the configuration here. Let me close this one. I don't need this Windows Maker. Let me just shut it down. Excuse me. All right, so close. Here, I want to open this one, the OMI GISize application. And this one, it contains a layout. And let me go to edit that layout. Well, basically, there are two things I did here. Is that I have put the event manager inside one of the panes, because this should be usually running, because it specifies the properties. So if you go and edit the Geospatial manager, you see that I have already configured some scripts that, you know, I need them for configuring the connection, sorry, the properties, and basically you can also specify the security with the SQL server. So here, the second thing to do after configuring your manager is put down the layout, which is the geospatial wrapper. You will find that actually if you go to the toolbox and go to the GISize content, go to apps, go to InTouch OMI, you will see that you will have something called, let me scroll down, this one, the GISize geospatial wrapper. Here you should drag and drop this inside the pane for you to be ready to go. Let me click on preview, click OK to see things in OMI now. All right, this will require some time to load. Sorry. Okay, so now basically what you have here, this is the view here, but I want to go to my to the online OpenStreetMap, then go to layers, select the layers I'm working on, and then zoom into Dubai. Here, let me go to Dubai, and then you will see that everything is ready for you in OMI. So basically, that's it for this webinar, and thank you for watching.
Thank you, Janine. It was an informative session. I hope all the attendees found it interesting and useful. Now, as mentioned earlier, we will wait a few seconds to receive the questions from our audience. Meanwhile, I would like to invite you to follow us on our social media platforms to stay up to date with our news and latest updates. I already shared with you the links in the chat box. Also, I received many questions about this webinar recording. We will share it with you later today, and you can find this webinar recording as well as all other webinar recordings on our YouTube channel. So don't forget to visit us and subscribe. All right, let me read the first question we received. Can we apply the plant model from the IDE to GISize automatically? Janine, can you help us with this question?
If I understood right, it means how to integrate the plant model automatically. Well, yes, this is a very nice question. Well, we have a very beautiful command here in the administration. If you go to administration, you can integrate all the Galaxy objects to be integrated directly to the GISize toolbox. So if you go to administration, repository operations, click on integrate Galaxy objects, you'll see that now it's preparing itself to import all those objects. It's like more than an integration wizard. You have some steps to do. For example, I want to integrate all of those. Next step, then it will just take you right away and you can do it. Yeah, it's doable actually, Carla. I hope this was informative for the guys.
Great, perfect. All right, Janine, we have another question. How can we consult the URL of online map providers?
You mean how to configure those map providers or how to get them, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Very good question. So actually, depending on the map provider itself, you can construct this URL, but I have a very good example, actually. Let me remember. Yeah. Okay, so I have an example for ArcGIS here. For example, the first thing I did is that I visited the sample server online and I got the main URL from the WMS feature. And then I added some important parameters for the GISize, for example, the format, the image, the SRS, which is the coordinate reference system. I added the bounding box, which is the area defined by 2 longitude and 2 latitudes, the layers, the width, the height. I added all those up to the URL, as you see at the end. And then I added some wildcards in order to finish or fine tune the URL. And you'll see this is basically the URL I have used inside when I configured the map provider. A Mapbox, for example, if you're using Mapbox or any other tool, it has ways to do it. I mean, it depending on the map provider that you are using. I hope I answered the question.
Okay, thank you, Janine. Let me check if we received any other question. In case we missed any of your questions, we will be answering them to your email. Okay. Okay, I think that's it with the questions. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Janine, so much for this webinar.